Welcome to another episode of Trial Site News. Today we're going to be talking about a vaccine injury scandal where the US government's Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program has had their claims skyrocketing. And now it seems that the government at its current pace will not resolve these claims for possibly up to a decade. That is the subject of today's episode. And so, from Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and our episode is starting right now. So, the US government's Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program is moving at a glacial pace. It will literally take decades to help compensate for the COVID-19 vaccine injury as it stands now. This, by the way, is an assessment not from some far right-leaning vaccine-critical website, but a piece from, of all places, Reuters. This recent Reuters entry demonstrates that the mass media, starting with the UK-based outfit, is moving to report on the scandal that is the COVID-19 vaccine injured in America. Elected officials are demonstrating their priority by their budgets. While countless billions of dollars have gone into promoting mass vaccination, little to no real investment nor material actions were taken to take care of the vaccine injured. But all corporate interests involved in the COVID-19 vaccine program, from the manufacturers and contractors to healthcare systems that naturally might make mistakes in the vaccination process along the way, are completely shielded from any liability by the US government under the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act. With over 7,500 people now on the list for claims, and that number, by the way, grew from 2,300 last year, the Reuters article emphasized that this gargantuan backlog representing a staggering workload of claims is clearly burying alive this tiny, understaffed, and underfunded government tribunal charged with adjudicating the petitions. See, even before the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the CICP had resolved less than 500 cases during its entire history, which is entirely absurd. And now the backlog includes many deaths, but naturally, of course, our fair writer over at Reuters takes great care in her language in her article so as not to be potentially labeled as anti-vaxxer. In fact, she even declares, for the record, "To be clear, I don't come at this from an anti-vax perspective." Oh my, well, good to know. Now, the Reuters writer reminds her readers that evidence abounds that COVID vaccines have prevented millions of hospitalizations and death. But it is inevitable that if you give anything to 265 million people, at least a handful will have adverse reactions. A handful, you say? Well, we here at Trial Site News have chronicled this situation carefully and estimate the numbers of vaccine injured could be at around 1% of the total number of vaccinations, which would put the total figures across the United States at over 2 million injured. It may be less, or it could be even a bit higher, but it is certainly a lot more than a handful. In any case, the question must be asked, how can an underfunded tiny tribunal deal with this accumulating backlog of injury claims? While there may be only 7,500 in the current backlog, that list is more than likely to grow far higher. A Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program spokesperson informed Ms. Green at Reuters that we are actively bringing on additional administrative staff and claims reviewers to process those claims as quickly as possible. Now, Reuters has reviewed budget documents showing that the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program's Herculean goal of taking care of all these vaccine-injured cases looks nearly impossible, especially given that they have just 8 full-time employees last year according to the government budget. Now, how on earth do you only have 8 full-time employees for this kind of situation? Especially with a dismal record of processing claims. This, to me, feels like a sick joke. No, instead, what we see here is a showing of one's true colors, from the Biden administration down to Congress. Priority of power is reflected by the budget. While billions of dollars in the aggregate flowed onto the largest mass vaccination campaign in history, next to nothing went to helping those injured. If this isn't a glaring example of priority, we here at Trial Site News can't think of a clearer one. Meanwhile, all liability from Pfizer, Moderna, the health systems, and other suppliers are completely shielded via the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act. Remember that? Effectively meaning that all claims go to as no fault. In other words, they head over to the CICP, which, for those of you who have been readers at trialsitenews.com or have been viewers of this channel for any length of time, you will have heard us discussing this glaring issue for the past couple of years now. So let's go back to the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program record on adjudicating claims. To date, according to Reuters reports, the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program has approved only 12 COVID-19 vaccine injury claims, and the dollar amounts have yet to be determined, by the way, since the first emergency use authorization made the vaccines available in mid-December of 2020. 10 of those 12 are for myocarditis injuries, 1 is for pericarditis, and another for anaphylaxis. 68 claims were denied, but there's no explanation as to the rationale for this decision. And the rest? Well, the remaining 7,544 remain in limbo. As Renee Gentry, director of the Vaccine Injury Litigation Clinic at the George Washington University Law School, aptly put it, I think it is spectacularly unfair to those people who went out and did their civic duty to protect themselves and their neighbors by getting vaccinated and were injured to be left out in the cold like this. Now, to give you an idea of just how absurd this whole situation is, in the Reuters report, William Phillips, a 60-year-old Virginia man, one of these in limbo vaccine injury claims, who contracted Guillain-Barré syndrome from the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine, has been informed that the tribunal will take at least a half year to validate his claim. Meanwhile, according to the Reuters report, trial lawyers, academics, and even Pfizer is supporting moving the vaccine injury cases from the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program to the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, otherwise known as the VICP, which at least is designed to manage more injury cases. However, the VICP is also underfunded, not surprisingly, and in dire need of modernization. Now, you might be wondering, why is Pfizer behind more expeditious injury adjudication? Well, Sharon Castillo, who heads up communications at Pfizer, told Reuters that the company understands that this could, quote, bolster public confidence in vaccines by ensuring access to a reliable, permanent, and more efficient compensation program. Interesting. Now, we here at Trial Site News commends Reuters as one of the first of the big corporate mainstream media to come forth and start exposing this situation, even if they are very late to the party. What's the old saying? Better late than never? In any case, we of course will be keeping an eye on this story as it continues to develop. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. For more stories like this, check back to this channel daily, Monday through Friday for new episodes, and at trialsitenews.com for numerous written stories daily, 7 days a week. As always, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. From Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.